Why doesn't God stop the storms? Welcome back, friends. Let us deal with a subject that many people wrestle with, especially when disaster hits close to home. From hurricanes to wildfires, floods to earthquakes, the natural world can sometimes feel dangerous and cruel. So, why would a loving God allow such storms and disasters to happen? When a tornado rips through a town, a flood devastates a community, or an earthquake shakes the ground, our hearts ache, and in our helplessness, our thoughts may often question God's love, God's power, and even God's very existence. To begin to answer this complex question, let's consider some basic truths. First of all, let's step back and remember this. We live in a broken world. Romans 8, verse 22 says, "The whole creation has been groaning like the pains of childbirth right up to the present time." In other words, ever since sin entered the world through Adam and Eve, as found in Genesis 3, not only were all people affected by sin, but the whole earth also was thrown off balance. Natural disasters are not how God originally designed the world. They are part of a broken, damaged system of nature that is waiting to be restored. But even in that brokenness, God hasn't abandoned creation or us. We must remember that God allows storms and natural disasters, not because He is unloving or powerless, but because these events fit within His greater plan for creation, for humanity, and even for our personal growth. He often uses storms to speak to us, or to redirect us, and even to reveal deeper truths to us. Do you know the biblical story of Job? He lost everything, including his children, his health, and his possessions, through a series of devastating, tragic events. Even though he didn't understand why, he stayed faithful. And in the end, God revealed to Job that through every moment of Job's suffering, God had never lost control. After Job's testing, God restored twice as much to Job as He had before this storm. Now, does that mean that God causes every disaster? Not necessarily, but He can use them to our benefit. As we've said before, storms can be used to speak to us. But also, sometimes storms wake us up or humble us. Or they can even be used to bring people together in ways that sunny days never could. Think of how communities rally together after a tragedy. Neighbors helping neighbors, churches opening their doors to become shelters, and total strangers working together to show Christ-like love. God often uses hardships to soften our hearts and refocus our priorities. Did you know that some people have found faith in God while standing in the rubble of a hurricane when they realized that the whole family survived? Others have been saved spiritually by the power of Jesus Christ as they went through a disaster that seemed unbearable. This doesn't mean that pain is easy or that answers are always clear, but it does mean that God never wastes pain. There is a divine, perfect purpose, even when we, as limited human beings, can't see it. In modern life, we have seen these truths in action. We may remember the wildfires in California or hurricanes and tornadoes that have devastated communities. While this destruction is real and heartbreaking, these moments often spark incredible outpourings of love, generosity, and resilience. Christians believe that God is present, even in the midst of the suffering, and He comforts the brokenhearted. He sustains those who are weak from despair, and He works through the compassion of His people to bring hope and help. Jesus Himself did calm a storm with just His voice in Mark 4, verses 35 through 41. But take note, before He calmed it, He let the disciples feel it. Why? To teach them faith and to show His power. And also to remind them they were never alone, even when the boat felt like it was sinking. Please understand that disasters should not automatically be seen as punishments for specific sins, as Jesus made clear in Luke 13, verse 4. When He spoke about a tower collapse that killed 18 people, He didn't blame the victims, but instead used the tragedy to call people to consider their own lives, assess their own spiritual readiness. Also, this doesn't mean that we should be passive about disasters. God gave us brains to build better warning systems, stronger buildings, and more effective relief efforts. Our compassionate response to the suffering of others reminds us that we were designed to live in community, caring for each other and treating people in the way that we would want them to treat us. The fact is, we live in a world where natural forces operate according to physical laws. And sometimes those forces create dangerous situations. God, in His wisdom, doesn't always intervene to stop them, but He promises to be with us through them. Romans 8, verse 28 reminds us that God works all things, even the painful things, together for the good of those who love Him. Most importantly, for those who feel that God is distant and unconcerned about our suffering, they only need to take a hard look at the cross. God entered fully into our suffering and misery through allowing His innocent Son, Jesus Christ, to experience extreme pain, loss, and death in order to pay the price for our sins. Our God definitely understands grief, sorrow, and loss to a degree that we will never experience. So when storms come, remember, God isn't absent. He's in the boat with us. These storms of life may shake us, but they don't have to break us when we realize that we are never alone. God may not always calm the storm immediately, but He always promises to carry us through it. So, even though we may not always understand why God allows each specific disaster, since His wisdom and purposes are extremely higher than ours, as He stated in Isaiah 55 verses 8 and 9, we can nevertheless rest confidently in His sovereignty, His love, and His promise that one day all things will be made new, and there will be no more tears, no more pain, and no more natural disasters, as He stated in Revelation 21, verse 4. Until then, we are called to put our trust in Him, to also love our neighbors, and to be His hands and feet in a dark, hurting world. Until next time, friends, may you never stop truly living, loving, and learning. God bless you all.